What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Paul. This is the Leeds Therapy. Thank you as ever for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Before we get into today's video, or should I say big game review, please make sure you subscribe, make sure your notifications are turned on, make sure that you are liking and hyping the video for me. Make sure that you're commenting on the video for me as well. That is an important part of all of this as well. It really, really helps with the video and getting it out there. So, ladies and gentlemen, also, before I forget, if you're listening to the audio version of this as well, just make sure that you're liking it and you are following us on Apple and also on Spotify as well. So, 2 trips to the City ground, 2 victories, 2 clean sheets, and we're in the next round of the Carabao Cup. Let me tell you something straight away. I think this performance was actually more likeable than it was on Saturday, because Saturday for me was about finding a way. It was about competing, defending, staying in the game, and if an opportunity arose, taking that opportunity as best as we could do. Tonight for me, it was a little bit different. We looked like a team that believed we could come back to the City ground, change some players around, change the tactics around, and get a result. And we did. We got a very, very good result. Nottingham Forest 0, Leeds United 2. Can we play you every week? Can we talk about the fact that we've won 2 games away from home in a row as well? I know it's the same opponent, but that's a really important thing that we need to discuss. Dan James with the breakthrough shortly after half-time, and James Justin was at the heart of the second goal in the 75th minute. They're trying to say it's an own goal. I've watched the replays. It's James Justin's goal the whole way through. It wasn't just about the goals, though. There were performances all over the pitch, which were really, really important for me. James Trafford, again, looked absolutely outstanding. Joe Rodon produced one of the tackles of the season on Chris Wood, by the way. Elvedi. Can we have a chat about Elvedi, please? He was brilliant on his Leeds United debut. Tanaka was just starting to remind people again of the player and the quality that he actually has. And Dan James comes into the side and does exactly what Dan James does. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to crack on with it in my usual inimitable fashion. And hopefully, you enjoy. So let's crack on. Daniel Farke made significant changes from the team that beat Forest 1-0 in the Premier League only 3 days earlier. But importantly, this wasn't Leeds simply throwing the Carabao Cup away. This was still a very strong spine. James Trafford remained in goal. The back 3 featured Tarek Muramovic, Joe Rodon, Nico Elvedi, with Elvedi making his Leeds United debut. James Justin operated down the side. Ethan Ampadu remained a major part of the midfield structure alongside Longstaff and Tanaka. And further forward, Leeds had Noah Okafor, Lucas Mecha and Daniel James involved. And that immediately gave us something interesting to look at, the depth of our squad. Because one of the big questions surrounding Leeds this season is whether this squad can cope when Farke starts rotating players. Tonight gave us the first proper answer, and the answer was encouraging. The opening 45 minutes wasn't perfect. Forest had their moments. They had Chris Wood leading the line, and they had enough Premier League quality on the pitch to cause Leeds problems. But what impressed me was that Leeds never looked intimidated by that. There was a calmness about the defensive structure, and a huge part of that came from the goalkeeper. I want to talk about James Trafford early because there's something happening here which goes beyond saves. Yes, he made important saves tonight. Yes, his shot stopping was excellent. But watch what happens around him. The defence looks calmer. Cross comes into the box. Trafford looks comfortable. Ball goes in behind. He's communicating. Forest get a shot away. He's set. Leeds want to recycle possession. He's available. And when he does have to make a save, there's very little drama. That is exactly what you want from your goalkeeper. There were moments tonight where Forest looked as though they might finally create something meaningful, and Trafford just dealt with it. And you can almost see the confidence that gives the 3 defenders in front of him. They don't look like they're defending in panic mode. They look organised. They look connected. And Trafford looks like the man controlling everything behind them. That's 2 trips to the City ground, 2 victories, 2 clean sheets, and some very important saves across those 2 games. That, for me, is very impressive. One of my favourite moments of the first half wasn't a shot. It wasn't some wonderful bit of attacking football. It was Joe Rodon. Chris Wood gets himself into a dangerous situation and suddenly Forest look like they've got the opportunity they've been waiting for. And Rodon comes across. Timing absolutely perfect. Strong, committed, wins the challenge, danger gone. That tackle summed up Joe Rodon for me because Chris Wood is not an easy striker to defend against. He's experienced, he's physical, he knows how to position himself, and if you allow him half a yard inside the penalty area, he can punish you. Rodon didn't allow it, and that's the type of defending Leeds need. No messing about, no unnecessary risk, see the danger, deal with the danger, move on. Rodon has become such an important player in this Leeds defence because you know what you're going to get from him. Intensity, commitment, aggression, leadership. And alongside the calmer influence of Trafford behind him and Elvedi next to him and Biol, I thought Rodon had another excellent evening. Then we need to talk about the debutant, Nico Elvedi. I thought he was brilliant. And what impressed me most was how little he looked like a player making his debut. There wasn't a nervous opening 20 minutes. There wasn't that period where you're thinking he just needs to get used to the pace. He looked comfortable almost immediately. Passion and positionally, he was good. He read situations well. He was composed with the ball. He didn't dive into challenges unnecessarily. And when Leeds needed somebody to step forward and deal with the ball, Elvedi was prepared to do it. That experience showed. He's played hundreds of games at a high level and represented Switzerland internationally, and you could see that maturity. There is a difference between a defender constantly having to make spectacular last-ditch tackles and a defender who prevents the situation developing in the first place. Elvedi did a lot of the latter. Good positioning, good anticipation, good communication, simple decisions. And for a debut, I couldn't really have asked for much more. When you start looking at Leeds' centre-back options now, Rodon, Muhramovic, Biol and Elvedi, suddenly that defensive department looks extremely competitive. I've said it time and time again, the Leeds wall. The other encouraging thing was that Leeds didn't become impatient. There were periods where Forest had possession. There were periods where Leeds couldn't quite put the final attacking move together, but the structure remained. Ampadu gave Leeds that familiar protection. Longstaff, although didn't have his best game by an absolute long shot, he did work hard. Tanaka tried to move the ball quickly, and James was constantly looking for appropriate opportunities to stretch Forest. At half-time, it's 0-0, and I wasn't particularly worried because Leeds looked comfortable. The question was simply whether we could find that extra bit of quality in the final third. 5 minutes into the second half, we did. Daniel James, one of those players who sometimes gets judged purely on what he does when he's standing still with the ball. And I've never really understood that because James's biggest weapon isn't standing still. It's movement, it's acceleration, it's running beyond defenders, it's forcing defenders to turn around and sprint towards their goal. And that's what Leeds started exploiting. The breakthrough arrives in the 50th minute and James gets his reward. Nottingham Forest 0, Leeds United 1. And suddenly, the entire complexion of the game changes because Forest now have to come forward. They have to take more risks. They have to open spaces. And that's exactly the type of game Leeds' attacking players want. James deserved that goal. His final product can frustrate people occasionally. We all know that. There were touches tonight which weren't perfect. There were moments where you wanted the decision to come slightly quicker, but the threat he provides is enormous. You cannot switch off against him because one run changes everything. And tonight, he made the difference. Forest did try to respond. Oliver Glasner went to his bench. Changes came. Fresh attacking players arrived, but Leeds didn't collapse backwards. That's important because there's always temptation away from home, particularly in a cup tie, to score and then immediately start protecting the penalty area. Leeds didn't just do that. Farke made changes himself. Harry Wilson came on. Brendan Aronson came on. Anton Stack came on. Jayden Bogle came on. And Leeds kept looking for opportunities. Then, around the 75th minute, Leeds get the second. James Justin is right at the centre of it, driving Leeds into the defensive moment and forcing the ball home through the Forest defence. 2-0. And at that point, you could almost feel the belief disappear from the City ground. Again, Imagine being a Forest supporter. You've watched Leeds turn up Saturday and beat you. Then 3 days later, we've come back, changed half the team and beaten you again. That's a rough 4 days. For us, absolutely lovely. The numbers reinforce the impression that this wasn't simply Leeds hanging on and hoping. Available live match data had Leeds with roughly 52% possession to Forest's 48%. Forest committed 15 fouls, Leeds around 10. Both sides had a small number of corners, Forest 3, Leeds 2, and Trafford was cited with saves while preserving another clean sheet. Most importantly, Forest 0 goals, Leeds 2 goals. And for the second time in 4 days, Leeds have prevented Nottingham Forest from scoring at the City Ground. Across 2 games, Nottingham Forest 0, Leeds United 1. Then Nottingham Forest 0, Leeds United 2. Average score over those 2 visits, Leeds 3, Forest 0. That's significant. So, looking at it, who played well? James Trafford, 9 out of 10, my man of the match. Not because he was making 15 saves, he wasn't, but because whenever Forest created something dangerous, Trafford looked ready. Important saves, strong positioning, good communication, and above everything else, calmness. That calming influence is already spreading through the Leeds defence. He looks completely comfortable being Leeds United's number 1. Another clean sheet, another away victory. Excellent. Nico Elvedi. What an outstanding debut. 8.5 out of 10. Composed, intelligent, positionally excellent, strong when he needed to be strong, comfortable on the ball, and he looked like he'd been playing alongside these defenders for months rather than making his first competitive appearance. There is serious competition for those centre-back positions now. Joe Rodon, 8.5 out of 10. Just typical Rodon. Aggressive, committed, dominant when required, and that first half tackle on Chris Wood was superb. That's exactly the type of challenge that can be forgotten when people look back at the highlights. But if Rodon doesn't make it, Wood potentially gets a major opportunity. It's a huge defensive moment. Dan James, I'm giving an 8 out of 10. Scored the breakthrough. Constant threat with his pace. Made Forest defenders uncomfortable whenever Leeds could release him into space. Not everything came off. It rarely does with James. But his ability to completely change the geography of a football match with one sprint remains incredibly valuable. And tonight he delivered the goal. James Justin, I'll give an 8 out of 10. Another very, very, very strong performance. Energy, athleticism, defensive responsibility, and crucially, he was involved in the moment which gave Leeds that 2-goal cushion. He's becoming one of those players whose versatility could be absolutely massive across a long season. Now, let's have a chat about honourable mentions. Al Tanaka deserves one. There were moments where he reminded everybody just how technically good he is, always looking for the next pass, always trying to receive on the turn, always trying to move Leeds forward. Ethan Ampadu was Ethan Ampadu. Nothing flashy, just constantly making the team function. Tarek Muharamovic continues to look like an extremely serious defender, and Sean Longstaff, whilst not having the best game, and he was poor in the first half, he did give energy and physicality through the midfield. This wasn't about one player dragging Leeds through the game. It felt like a proper squad performance. I don't think there's any genuinely bad Leeds performances, and that's important to say, but there were a couple where you would probably want a little bit more. Mecha worked hard, occupied defenders, tried to provide Leeds with the focal point, but didn't dominate the game. There were occasions where Leeds needed the ball to stick up front, and it didn't quite happen. That's the next step, particularly when you've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin competing for that number 9 position. Mecha needs goals and decisive attacking moments. Noah Okafor, again, not poor, but relatively quiet. You can see the ability with him. You can see the acceleration, and there are moments where he looks like something could happen. But Leeds need that final action, the final pass, the shot, the assist, the moment that turns promising possession into something tangible. There is definitely a player there. We just need to see him influencing games with more consistency. What did we learn? This is the biggest thing for me. Saturday proved Leeds can compete. Tonight suggested Leeds have a little bit of depth, and that's the difference. Farke was able to change the team. Tanaka comes into midfield. Longstaff starts. James comes in. Mecha comes in. Okafor gets an opportunity. Elvedi makes his debut. And Leeds still look organised. Still look difficult to beat. Still look capable of winning. And that's what Premier League squads need. Because the season isn't 11 players. It's 20 plus players. Injuries happen. Suspensions happen. Form disappears. Fixtures pile up. And tonight there were players essentially saying, don't forget about me. And that is healthy. So, Nottingham Forest 0, Leeds United 2. Leeds are through to the Carabao Cup, but more importantly for me, the momentum continues. 2 visits away from home in 4 days, 2 victories, 2 clean sheets, 3 goals scored, none conceded. And that is, when you think about it, what we've seen over the last 3 days. Anton Stack winning Saturday's Premier League game with that brilliant late free kick. Then Daniel James delivering tonight. James Justin helping put the game beyond Forest. Nico Elvedi producing an excellent debut. Joe Rodon throwing himself into challenges. Tarek Muhramovic continuing his impressive start. Al Tanaka getting valuable minutes. And James Trafford once again looking like a goalkeeper completely comfortable with the responsibility he's been given. And I keep coming back to that word, calm, because Leeds look calmer defensively. They look more mature. They look more comfortable suffering for periods, and they're starting to look like a team that understands how to win different types of football matches. Nobody is getting carried away. It's August. There is a very long season ahead. There will be defeats. There will be difficult afternoons. There will be performances where we're all sat here asking, what on earth we've just watched? That is football. More importantly, it's Leeds United. But tonight, enjoy it, because winning away from home is difficult. Winning twice at the same Premier League ground in 4 days is even more impressive. And doing the second one after rotating the team tells us something about where this squad might be heading. 2 away wins in a row, 2 clean sheets in a row, and Leeds United are into the next round of the Carabao Cup. Not a bad few days at all. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm properly gassed with that. I didn't expect that this evening. I knew there'd be changes, but I worried about how the people coming in would affect the game, and they did an absolutely incredible job as far as I'm concerned. I thought we were absolutely brilliant, absolutely amazing. Couple of players weren't too much at the races, but some serious ones stepped up, and I've got to give plaudits to Nico Elvedi, who had a fantastic game. But also as well, my guy, James Trafford, Jesus, he is a keeper. An absolute quality keeper. And you can see the calmness that he breeds to everybody else in the defence. And it just runs from there. It's going to do it for this one. Now over to you guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Are you happy? You've got to be happy with that, surely. And next up, we have Brentford at home. I am desperately trying to get a ticket for that game. We've got Brentford at home on Sunday. Oh, it's exciting. I'm so happy football's back. And when it's like this, it's good. So enjoy these moments while they're here, because they might not be here every single week. Take the positivity and run with it, guys. Take care of each other. Most importantly, please take care of yourself. I've waffled on for nearly 20 minutes because I am that happy. I will see you soon. Take care of yourself. That's the really important thing for me. Thank you so much for your time. Take it easy. Bye.